I was standing just outside the company's main conference room, my hands gripping the strap of my laptop bag a little tighter than usual. The buzz of quiet conversations and the occasional tapping of keyboards drifted through the glass walls, where a handful of executives and colleagues were already settling into their seats. Today was the day I had been preparing for weeks. My presentation on the new marketing strategy was supposed to be the turning point for my career at Strathmore Innovations. As I adjusted my tie and took a deep breath, I caught sight of Emily Carter across the hall. She was leaning casually against the wall near the conference room entrance, her arms crossed and a faint, knowing smile playing at the corners of her lips. Emily, the CEO's daughter, had made her disdain for me perfectly clear since the day I joined the company. Her reputation for entitlement and subtle sabotage was well known, but I had hoped today she might stay out of my way. Apparently, I was wrong. I stepped into the conference room moments before the start of the meeting. The sleek, modern space was filled with polished wood tables and high-backed chairs, the large projector screen dominating the far wall. The room was buzzing with anticipation, and I could feel the weight of expectation pressing down on me. As I set my laptop down on the podium and plugged it into the projector, a sharp pang of nervousness twisted in my stomach. My eyes flicked to Emily again. She was still there, her gaze fixed on me with that unsettling mix of amusement and something darker, a smirk curling her lips like she was already envisioning my failure. I glanced at my laptop screen to double-check that the presentation was loaded and ready. But something was off. The files I had painstakingly organized and labeled were nowhere to be found. Panic surged through me as I frantically clicked through folders, only to realize that the key slides were missing entirely. My heart pounded as the room's chatter hushed, and all eyes turned toward me, awaiting the start of the presentation. I looked up, scanning the room for any sign of what had happened. That's when I noticed Emily's hands subtly reach behind the podium, just out of my line of sight. In that instant, the pieces fell into place. She had unplugged my laptop and deleted my files, ensuring that when I plugged back in, my presentation would be gone. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay calm despite the adrenaline flooding through my veins. I couldn't let her see me falter. Clearing my throat, I addressed the room. "Good morning, everyone. I'm just experiencing a slight technical issue, but we'll get started momentarily." Emily's smug expression only deepened, and I caught her eye briefly. Her confidence was palpable, as if she had already claimed victory in this silent battle. I knew better than to confront her directly in front of the others. This was a game of subtle moves and quiet power plays, and she was counting on me to lose my composure. As murmurs rippled through the room, I busied myself trying to recover the files, clicking through every imaginable folder and recycle bin. My mind raced back to the countless hours I had spent preparing, rehearsing every slide and anticipating every question. I had to find a way to salvage this moment, or all my efforts would be for nothing. Emily's presence lingered like a shadow at the edge of my vision, her triumphant posture taunting me. I felt the sting of betrayal, not just from her, but from the realization that office politics could be so ruthless. The executives and colleagues who had once looked at me with interest were now exchanging uncertain glances, whispering among themselves. I sensed the shifting tide of opinion, the silent doubts creeping in. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to slow down. Panic would only make things worse. There had to be a solution, a way to turn this around. But as the seconds ticked by, it felt like the walls were closing in, the weight of the moment pressing down harder with every passing heartbeat. Emily's smirk never wavered. She glanced at her watch, then back at me, clearly enjoying the spectacle she had orchestrated. The CEO's daughter, playing the role of the poised insider, reveling in the discomfort she had caused. I hated that I had underestimated her, but there was no time for regrets now. The room grew quieter as the meeting organizer glanced at their watch and gave me a sympathetic nod. I nodded back, acknowledging the silent support but knowing that sympathy alone wouldn't save me. I was on my own to navigate this mess. I leaned over the podium, fingers flying across the keyboard, hoping against hope that some trace of my presentation had survived the deletion. My mind was a whirlwind of possibilities: backups, cloud storage, flash drives, anything that could help me retrieve my work before the moment spiraled out of control. As I worked, I felt the eyes of the room burn into me, the weight of expectation mingling with the unforgiving gaze of judgment. I was acutely aware that this was more than just a presentation. It was a test of my resilience and my ability to withstand the subtle sabotage that had become all too common in this environment. Emily's posture remained relaxed, as if the outcome was already decided. But I refused to let her win. Not today. Not here. The tension in the room was palpable, a silent storm gathering beneath the polished surfaces and professional facades. I could feel the collective breath held, waiting to see whether I would crumble or somehow pull myself back from the edge. Minutes felt like hours as I continued my desperate search for a solution, each click a gamble with fate. The presentation was supposed to be my chance to shine, to prove that I belonged at Strathmore Innovations and deserved the trust of the leadership. But now, with the files gone and Emily's sabotage hanging in the air like a dark cloud, I was facing a different kind of challenge, one that tested not just my skills, but my composure and determination. As I glanced once more at Emily, I caught her eye and held her gaze steady. There was a silent message in that look. I wasn't defeated yet. Whatever she had planned, I was still standing. And I was going to find a way to fight back. As the seconds stretched on, my mind drifted back to the first time I'd met Emily Carter. It was during my interview at Strathmore Innovations, a brief encounter in the lobby where her cool, dismissive glance had left no doubt that she saw me as nothing more than an outsider. Over the months, that initial disdain had blossomed into something far more calculated. Emily wasn't just indifferent, she was actively hostile, her jealousy simmering beneath a veneer of corporate politeness. She had always resented my rapid rise within the company. From the moment I was promoted to lead the marketing team, her thinly veiled contempt turned into subtle acts of sabotage. There were whispered conversations behind my back, last-minute schedule changes that conveniently clashed with important meetings, and the occasional misplaced file, all designed to derail my progress without drawing too much attention. Now, as I fought to recover my presentation, I realized I was living the latest chapter in that ongoing battle. Emily's smirk remained locked in place, her eyes gleaming with the certainty of someone who believed the game was already over. She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms as if she were watching a spectator sport. I could almost hear the silent commentary in her mind, "Not today, Daniel. Not this time." But I wasn't about to let her win so easily. I refocused, scanning every folder, every hidden directory on my laptop. My fingers trembled slightly as I navigated through the system, searching for any trace of my deleted files. The room around me blurred into the background, the expectant faces, the hushed whispers, all fading as I concentrated on one thing, recovering what was lost. Despite the growing pressure, a strange calm settled over me. I knew Emily's tactics were nothing new, and I had anticipated the possibility of sabotage. Months ago, I'd started backing up critical files to a secure cloud server, a precaution I hadn't shared with anyone, not even my closest colleagues. It was a silent insurance policy, one I had hoped never to need. The thought gave me a flicker of hope. I glanced briefly at Emily, who caught my eye and raised an eyebrow in challenge. Her confidence was infuriating, but it also fueled my resolve. I wasn't just fighting for this presentation, I was fighting for my place in the company, for every late night and early morning I'd sacrificed to get here. As I pulled up my phone and connected it to the projector, a few heads in the room shifted, intrigued by the unexpected move. Emily's expression faltered just slightly, a brief crack in her otherwise flawless facade. I logged into the cloud server, fingers moving quickly but deliberately. The familiar interface appeared, and there, nestled within the folders I had carefully organized, were the slides, every chart, every bullet point, every carefully crafted argument intact and ready. A wave of relief washed over me, but I kept my expression neutral. There was no room for celebration yet. With a few taps, I initiated the presentation from my phone, and the projector flickered to life. The first slide appeared on the screen, crisp and clear. The room's attention snapped back to me, a mix of surprise and admiration rippling through the audience. Emily's smirk vanished, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. I stepped up to the podium, voice steady despite the pounding of my heart. "Thank you for your patience. Let's begin." As I moved through the slides, outlining the new marketing strategy with the confidence I had rehearsed countless times. I felt the atmosphere shift. The executives leaned forward, engaged and interested. Questions came at the end, thoughtful, challenging, but fair. I answered each one, drawing on my deep knowledge of the project and the data I had painstakingly gathered. Throughout it all, I kept one eye on Emily. She was no longer the poised antagonist. Her posture tightened, and her gaze darted around the room, searching for allies or excuses. But the tide had turned. This wasn't just a presentation anymore. It was a quiet triumph over the politics and petty games that threatened to undermine everything I'd worked for. As the meeting drew to a close, the CEO nodded approvingly, complimenting the thoroughness of the plan and the clarity of the delivery. I caught a few nods of respect from colleagues who had been skeptical only moments before. Emily gathered her things quickly, her usual confidence replaced by a forced neutrality. I knew this wasn't over, far from it, but for today, I had won. Later, as I packed up my things in my office, I allowed myself a moment to reflect on what had just happened. Emily's sabotage was a stark reminder of the challenges that came with climbing the corporate ladder. It wasn't just about skills or ideas, it was about navigating a complex web of relationships, rivalries, and power plays. But I also recognized something more important. Preparation and resilience were my greatest allies. Anticipating pitfalls and having a backup plan had saved me from disaster. Remaining calm under pressure had turned a potential humiliation into a moment of strength. I pulled up the company directory and found Emily's profile. A pang of frustration hit me as I thought about her sense of entitlement, the belief that her family name entitled her to special treatment. It was clear she saw my success as a personal threat, something to be crushed before it grew too large. Yet, despite her attempts to undermine me, I realized that her actions only revealed her insecurity. She was afraid of losing control, of being overshadowed by someone she considered beneath her. That knowledge gave me a strange sense of clarity. If I could stay focused on my work and maintain my integrity, the petty games would eventually lose their power. I made a note to document today's incident carefully. If Emily's behavior continued, it would be important to have a record, not just for my own protection, but to ensure that the company leadership understood the dynamics at play. As I glanced at my computer screen, I felt a renewed sense of determination. This was more than a single presentation or a single victory. It was part of a larger journey, one where resilience, strategy, and calm under pressure would be the keys to success. And I was ready for whatever came next. Even as I wrapped up the final slide and fielded the last of the questions, a quiet confidence settled over me. But beneath that calm surface, a plan long in the making was finally coming to fruition, one that had been quietly unfolding behind the scenes, waiting for the right moment to surface. I had anticipated this kind of sabotage from Emily. Months ago, when the first subtle signs of interference appeared, I began taking extra precautions. Beyond simply backing up my presentations to the cloud, I archived every email, every message, and every suspicious interaction related to my projects. I knew that if Emily's tactics escalated, would need concrete proof to protect myself and expose her manipulations. Now, as the room's attention shifted from confusion to admiration, I saw the subtle change. Colleagues who had been skeptical moments before were nodding along, impressed by the seamless recovery and the depth of my strategy. It was clear that Emily's plan had backfired spectacularly. After the meeting, the conference room slowly emptied, but I lingered, pulling out my phone to double-check the backup files and ensure nothing was left to chance. As I scrolled through my secure folders, I stopped on a folder labeled Emily Carter, Evidence. Inside were carefully saved screenshots of emails she'd sent under my name, filled with errors and misleading information, notes from meetings where she had deliberately misrepresented facts, and even a few messages she had accidentally sent to the wrong recipients, revealing her intent to undermine me. I felt a mix of vindication and relief. I had anticipated her moves from the start, and now I had the proof to back it up. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mr. Harrison, my department manager. "Can we meet in my office? There's something you need to see." I made my way down the corridor, the weight of the day still heavy but my steps lighter with purpose. When I entered Mr. Harrison's office, he didn't waste time. On his desk lay a folder, thick and leather-bound, unmistakably official. "We received an anonymous report detailing attempts to sabotage presentations within your department," he began, his eyes serious but encouraging. "After today's incident, the compliance team launched an investigation." I nodded, heart pounding. This was it, the moment I'd been preparing for in silence. He slid the folder across to me. Inside were printouts of internal server logs, timestamps showing access to my laptop at unusual times, and copies of emails pointing to unauthorized deletions from my files. Most damning were the handwriting samples on notes found in the conference room, notes filled with inaccuracies and criticism supposedly from me but clearly penned by someone else. "I cross-referenced these with samples from your HR file," Mr. Harrison continued. "The handwriting doesn't match yours. We also found evidence linking these actions to Emily Carter's workstation and devices." A surge of vindication flooded me. The meticulous documentation I'd kept was finally paying off. Mr. Harrison leaned forward. "Given the evidence, Emily has been placed on administrative leave pending further review. The company takes these matters seriously, and we want to ensure a fair process." I exhaled, a tension I hadn't realized I'd been holding finally releasing. "Thank you," I said quietly. "I just want to focus on my work and move forward." He smiled. "You handled today with professionalism and grace. That's exactly the attitude we need." As I left his office, I felt a strange mixture of exhaustion and empowerment. The facade of Emily's carefully curated image was beginning to crack, and the truth was coming to light. Her attempts to manipulate the situation and drag me down were unraveling, piece by piece. In the days that followed, whispers circulated through the company. Emily's absence was noted, and while some sympathized with her, many began to see the situation in a new light. The evidence was clear, and the leadership's response sent a message: sabotage and deceit would not be tolerated. Despite the storm swirling around us, I remained focused on the work ahead. The marketing strategy one had presented was gaining traction, and I was invited to join several high-level meetings to refine and implement the plan. It was a reminder that integrity and preparation could outshine even the darkest attempts at sabotage. One afternoon, as I reviewed campaign drafts in my office, my phone rang. It was a call from HR, confirming that an internal review had implicated Emily's father, the CEO's close advisor, in facilitating some of the misconduct. The company was taking steps to address the broader issues of nepotism and accountability. The news was both shocking and unsurprising. It explained the protection Emily had felt she enjoyed and the lengths she had gone to in order to undermine me. I sat back in my chair, reflecting on everything that had transpired. The journey had been difficult, marked by quiet battles fought behind the scenes and moments of self-doubt. But the truth had a way of emerging, no matter how deeply it was buried. In the weeks that followed, I noticed subtle changes around the office. The atmosphere grew less tense, and colleagues who had once been hesitant began approaching me with support and ideas. Mr. Harrison apologized for not intervening sooner and acknowledged my resilience by promoting me to senior account manager. The empty cubicle that once belonged to Emily served as a silent reminder of the cost of deceit and the rewards of perseverance. As I settled into my new role, I carried with me a lesson that went beyond corporate politics, that foresight, integrity, and calm under pressure were not just professional assets but tools for navigating life's unexpected challenges. And though the path ahead remained uncertain, I felt ready. Ready to face whatever came next with the quiet confidence of someone who had weathered the storm and emerged stronger on the other side. In the days following the presentation debacle and the unveiling of Emily's sabotage, the atmosphere within the company shifted, albeit quietly. No grand announcements were made, no sweeping changes announced in company-wide emails. Instead, the response was measured, deliberate, and carried out with an eye toward preserving the company's reputation. I found myself called into a meeting with HR and Mr. Harrison, where the tone was firm but discreet. They expressed disappointment over Emily's conduct, acknowledging the difficulty of the situation given her family ties to the CEO. Yet, they assured me that the company was committed to addressing the behavior appropriately and fairly, emphasizing the importance of maintaining integrity within the workplace. The leadership's approach was cautious, there was an unspoken understanding that while Emily's actions were unacceptable, handling the matter quietly was in everyone's best interest, especially to avoid disrupting ongoing projects or drawing media attention. Despite this, I could sense the internal wheels turning. Whispers circulated about increased scrutiny of Emily's involvement in company affairs, and I was informed that her access to sensitive projects and meetings would be temporarily limited during the ongoing review. These restrictions were subtle but clear markers that her influence was being curtailed. During this period, I focused on my work with renewed determination. The trust that the executives had shown me by allowing me to lead critical initiatives was both a responsibility and a balm to the tension from recent events. I dove into refining the marketing strategy, collaborating with my team, and preparing detailed reports that would bolster our plans. As I navigated this new phase, I found myself reflecting deeply on the lessons learned from the ordeal. The experience had underscored the necessity of resilience in the face of workplace politics and the value of meticulous preparation. It wasn't enough to be skilled or knowledgeable, one had to anticipate challenges, document interactions carefully, and maintain composure under pressure. One afternoon, during a team meeting, Mr. Harrison publicly commended the professionalism I had exhibited. His words were deliberate and meaningful, praising not just the quality of my work but the grace with which I had handled the sabotage attempt. The recognition was more than a personal victory, it was a message to the entire department about the standards expected and the support available for those who uphold them. The tacit support from leadership gradually translated into tangible changes. I was entrusted with greater responsibilities, overseeing key accounts and spearheading new campaigns. The promotion to senior account manager wasn't just a title, it was acknowledgement of my commitment and integrity. Yet, amidst these professional strides, I remained aware of the undercurrents that still flowed beneath the surface. Office politics didn't disappear overnight, and the cautious glances, whispered conversations, and subtle power plays persisted. But now, I felt equipped to navigate them with clarity and confidence. I also noticed a subtle shift in the attitudes of some colleagues who had been hesitant or distant before. Perhaps witnessing the company's support and the consequences faced by Emily signaled a change in the corporate culture, at least within our circle. Occasionally, I glanced toward Emily's vacant cubicle, a stark reminder of the fallout from her actions. The absence was a silent testament to the price of undermining others and the eventual triumph of truth and fairness. Sometimes, I thought about the path that had led me here, the long hours, the moments of doubt, the quiet preparations for battles I hadn't yet fully understood. It was clear now that success in this environment required more than expertise. It demanded vigilance, strategic thinking, and an unwavering commitment to one's principles. These reflections helped me stay grounded as I continued to build my career. I learned to balance assertiveness with diplomacy, to document not just successes but also challenges, and to foster alliances based on mutual respect and shared goals. Through it all, the support from Mr. Harrison and a few trusted colleagues became invaluable. Their belief in my abilities and character reinforced my own confidence and provided a buffer against the residual tensions. One evening, after a lengthy strategy session, I sat alone in my office, reviewing the latest campaign metrics. The quiet hum of the city outside contrasted with the storm that had raged within these walls weeks before. I allowed myself a moment of quiet satisfaction, not just for the progress made but for the resilience cultivated. The experience had transformed me. Where once I might have been shaken by sabotage and uncertainty, I now felt fortified by the knowledge that integrity, preparation, and calm determination could carry me through even the most challenging trials. As I shut down my computer and gathered my belongings, I knew the journey was far from over. There would be more obstacles ahead, more tests of character and skill. But I was ready. Because I had learned that true strength didn't always roar, sometimes, it was the quiet resolve to stand firm when everything else seemed to be falling apart. Weeks passed in a blur of meetings, project launches, and cautious but growing momentum. The office felt different now, lighter, as if a burden had been lifted, though the shadows of the past still lingered quietly in the corners. Emily's restrictions had been extended, and whispers circulated about the extent of the internal review that implicated not only her but also her father, the CEO's close advisor. The revelation that her father had been involved in facilitating some of the misconduct was both shocking and, in hindsight, not entirely surprising. It explained the lengths to which Emily had gone, the protection she assumed she had, and the subtle pressures that had shaped the company's culture for years. The leadership was forced to confront these uncomfortable truths, and decisive action was taken. Both Emily and her father were removed from their positions pending further investigation, a move that sent ripples through the organization. In the wake of these changes, the company sought to rebuild trust and reinforce a culture of accountability. New policies were introduced, emphasizing transparency and fair treatment, and an anonymous reporting system was established to encourage employees to speak up without fear of retaliation. For me, the aftermath brought a mix of emotions. There was relief, certainly, but also a renewed sense of purpose. The promotion to senior account manager wasn't just a recognition of past efforts, it was a mandate to help shape a better future for the company and its people. Mr. Harrison, who had been a steady source of support throughout the ordeal, took me aside one afternoon. His expression was earnest as he said, "Jessica, I want to apologize for not stepping in sooner. You showed incredible strength and professionalism, and you deserve every bit of the success that's coming your way. We're lucky to have you." His words meant more than I could express. The path had been difficult, marked by challenges that tested my resolve, but hearing that acknowledgement from someone I respected helped solidify my confidence. In my new role, I found myself mentoring younger team members, sharing not just technical knowledge but also the importance of integrity and resilience. The lessons I had learned were not just about navigating office politics but about standing firm in the face of adversity and using setbacks as opportunities for growth. One afternoon, as I walked past Emily's now empty cubicle, I paused. The space was clean and orderly, yet it felt hollow, a silent reminder of the consequences of deceit and the fragile nature of power built on manipulation. It was a stark contrast to the path I had chosen, one grounded in honesty and hard work. Reflecting on everything, I realized that true justice rarely comes in dramatic confrontations or loud victories. Instead, it unfolds quietly, through persistent effort, careful documentation, and the unwavering commitment to doing what's right. The experience had shaped me in profound ways. I had grown more confident, more strategic, and more aware of the complexities that come with professional success. I understood now that setbacks and challenges were inevitable, but they also presented opportunities to demonstrate strength and character. As I settled into my office one evening, reviewing strategy documents and planning the next campaign, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The road ahead was still uncertain, filled with new challenges and unknowns, but I was ready. Ready to face whatever came next with the calm assurance that comes from having weathered the storm. And as I glanced once more toward the vacant cubicle, I knew that no matter how carefully someone plots against you, the truth always leaves a trail that, in the end, leads to quiet vindication and the promise of new beginnings.